So starting today's episode with someone who knows how to turn complex ideas into messaging that actually connects, I'm with Melissa Larrea. She's a communications specialist who has helped brands and businesses tell their stories with clarity, creativity, and impact. With over 12 years of experience in PR, marketing strategy, and content creation, she brings both big picture thinking and hands-on execution to every project. Whether she's shaping brand messaging, leading content campaigns, or stepping in as a fractional CMO, Melissa focuses on building real connection through messages, visuals, and strategies that feel authentic and drive results. She works with clients on a project basis, and at the heart of it all, she sees every relationship as a true partnership, but built on collaboration, trust, and getting great work done. And fun fact, Melissa and I actually met when I first moved to Fort Lauderdale in 2020.
Crazy.
And that's time flies. And I was living in Society Los Olas, and she was doing PR for the building at the time, which ended up me landing in the Wall Street Journal and a full cover photo too. It was nice. And it's a full circle moment now. We've worked together on a couple of clients. We've done speaking events together, but it's nice to have you here on the podcast.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. It is amazing how small and big the Fort Lauderdale world is. And
literally,
our stories keep kind of intersecting. So it's been really fun, and I'm so happy to be here.
They really do. So let's give our listeners a little bit about your background and how did you find your way into communications?
Sure. So I am maybe a rarity in the fact that very early on, I knew I wanted to do communications. Mm-hmm. So actually, even in high school, I did an externship program with our local hospital working in the marketing department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then from there, when I went to college, I played soccer at a university, but they actually specialized in communications. So at High Point University, I took strategic marketing and then did some master's classes within strategic communications as well. And just really was lit on fire with being able to connect and communicate with people. Obviously, that means a lot of different things, and we'll really dive into that today, I know. But for me, it was more the emotional connection. I loved being able to have one-to-one conversations with people, get to the root of the why and the emotion behind everything that made up marketing. And that's really stuck with me over the years. I've worked for a few firms here in Fort Lauderdale, also working with brands nationwide and even internationally. And I just recently broke off onto my own, started my own firm, and I'll be focusing on project-based communications and fractional CMO work.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. So you've worked with all different sizes of organizations and startups. What challenges show up most when brands try to define their voice?
Sure. So you'll hear this theme a lot as I talk, but the act of keeping things simple is so hard. And in order to really convey messaging, you have to start with simple first. And I think, especially in the world of social media and mixed media and digital marketing, people think, oh, more is more, right? How much can we do? More videos, more content, more posts, more native content, whatever it is. And sometimes the actual messaging gets lost in translation because there's just too much out there.
Yes.
So no matter how big a brand is, I always advise people to start with simple first and then add and build from there. But that's definitely where people misstep a lot. And then I would say also not knowing your audience. So we'll probably dive deeper into this later on, but being able to define your audience and understanding that your audience can change over time and your messaging should change based off of which audience you're talking to at the time. That's definitely something that people have missteps on all the time.
Couldn't agree more. And this next question, I know I can answer on my behalf, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts because we see a lot of brands struggle how to explain what they do or who they serve. And I find that it's a lot of our clients who are, great at their profession. So maybe they're a doctor or they're a lawyer and they're very, very analytical and high level thinking, but their audience is not at that level. So they're thinking and talking and writing content and giving me social media posts at their level and not at their audience's level. So I feel like that's where that gap can be.
No, absolutely.
And I mean, what do you see that why they struggle?
That's definitely a factor. I think having someone, my husband's a lawyer. So sometimes even when we have conversations, I hear the lawyer in him.
Yes.
And I think that's natural for anyone.
And that's probably what makes him a great lawyer.
Of course.
Yes.
Exactly. And we love that. But being able to step outside of your own head and kind of the vision that you're seeing and kind of see the peripheral, that helps. I would say also not knowing the why behind what they're doing. So people know the what all the time. I mean, Simon Sinek, right? We could talk about this, start with why. Every marketer should know it. Watch that TED Talk, read all his books, all of that. But starting with the why and always going back to the core of the why, I feel like that is something that a lot of people miss, especially when they're growing their brands or maybe they're evolving their brands. They, once again, get distracted by all the things you can be doing and forget to be true to their core mission and speaking to exactly why and the benefits that they're providing to their clients.
You said it great. And jumping off that, what role does messaging play in brand trust and conversion?
Sure. Now more than ever, brand trust is important.
I agree.
Authenticity, transparency. It's very easy for people to see through kind of corporate crap.
Yes.
You know, and I think if someone is authentic to who they are, or not only the brand, but also I think the C-suite needs to be authentic. And we're in an era where people want to see the face behind the brand, right?
Yes.
I mean, when you talk about platforms where that's important, LinkedIn, TikTok, even Instagram. I mean, us doing this right now, podcast, you have a video component to it. You want people to see your face, see your brand, trust you, start having that emotional bond and connection.
Exactly.
Because people who trust brands and have that emotional connection are more likely to buy.
Yes.
And not that it's all about money, but when we're looking at marketing for conversion, it is. And that is one of the biggest tools right now. I'm working actually with a few CEOs and doing some work with them on evolving their LinkedIns. And we're actually talking way less about the actual products they're doing. And we're talking more about the values they have.
Yes.
And the approach to business that they have. They're becoming thought leaders in the why, not just the what.
Yes.
And that's extremely important.
And we've talked about that in so many of these podcast episodes. I think the podcast editing team has heard this so many times. With thought leadership and putting the face behind it. People don't realize how important that is. So it's something that we can say all day long. And it reminds me of, there was this famous like TikTok influencer, and he built his whole following on giving everyone like a realistic day in his life. And he became so big that he was able to quit his job. And he had brand deals. I mean, he had all the things going for him, but he decided to quit his job, and that content fell apart because then everyone was following him because it was realistic or because it was what they wanted to see. And he tried to become an influencer, and he lost that trust. He lost that authenticity. Like, that was what was working for him. Not just because he's a person. So it's finding that, like, that value of what you're adding. And like a CEO, they're probably great at running the company. People already know the company, or they'll find out about the company, but knowing who the CEO is behind the brand is so important.
I'll source this for you later because I can't remember exactly what it was, but I read a stat earlier today that was something like 85 to 86% of consumers with like a high emotional intelligence are more likely to follow a brand over time if they know they trust that brand authenticity. So
makes sense.
I think it's so important. And now, when everyone seems to be a content creator, or anyone with an iPhone can create something, put it out there, having a long-term strategy also with consistency and authenticity. I mean, it should be a pillar of your marketing strategy, truly. That's something that I've been focusing a lot on recently, is creating not just these short-term campaign sprints, but in the fractional CMO work I'm doing, it's creating a blueprint that goes beyond 12 months, long term. And at the core of every single one of those is, what is your C-suite saying and how are they showing up?
And then making that sustainable. So let's get into what works and what doesn't when it comes to brand messaging. What's the difference between brand messaging and marketing copy?
So brand messaging is, if I were to just throw out a brand, let's say Nike or something like that, whatever first pops into your mind is the brand, and
which of course is
around
just do it. Exactly.
Well, it's funny you say that, because technically the copy itself would be just do it. But the brand, what it invokes, and the messaging and the emotion, that's more of the brand messaging. So when I think about it, I think athletic, fast, something that I can rely on.
Yeah.
It's a brand that's stand the test of times, things like that. And then when you look at the actual ads, or you look at what's on the bags when you go and buy something in the store, or different things like that, that's more of the actual copy. So the copy is really the expression of what the brand messaging is.
Yeah. So if you don't have the great brand messaging, it's hard to have great copy.
Exactly. And I think, once again, at the core of all of this is starting with simple. I mean, just do it.
Right.
Can't get
And everyone remembers it.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's actually funny bringing up Nike, because they're kind of going through a little bit of what I would say is an identity crisis in their marketing. They're starting to shift things. They talked about stepping away from the just do it mantra. The messaging isn't lining up with the core brand that they have built over time.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to Google and look at, because it's a really interesting case study of maybe not necessarily what not to do, but something to consider that could be
the struggling and the involvement of it. Everyone has to evolve, but then evolve where? That leads me to asking you, what are the signs that a brand's messaging is maybe unclear or misaligned?
Sure. One of my favorite tests for this is what I like to call the office phone call test. So if you have a company of 40 people, and let's say a reporter were to call your office, can anyone in your office pick up the phone and answer the reporter's questions the same way? Because internally, if your people and the core of the culture don't know what your brand messaging is, I can guarantee you no one else on the outside does.
Yes.
So that's something that's really interesting. And when we do a lot of corporate communications coaching and consulting and things like that, even if we're just working with the C-suite team, we usually do a 30-minute all call, and it's just an alignment on brand messaging.
Yeah.
I mean, I think brands should do at least once a year some sort of summit where they refresh on their main pillars, their brand messaging, and what they're trying to convey to the world. And there should be not only external messaging, but internal messaging too.
Yes.
So that's one test. But definitely another one is if you're maybe scrolling through their social media pages and you say, okay, but what do they do?
Yeah. So I've had many times,
right?
I have to send a proposal to a new client.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know what they do.
Right.
Oh, they just really need help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. They've done every single TikTok trend, and I'm watching and consuming these videos, and I know their brand name, but I don't actually know what services they sell.
Yeah.
That's confusing, right?
Yes.
So that's definitely something that if you want to self-audit yourself, maybe say, okay, if I were a stranger, what do I sell, kind of thing. And then just in general, also, if you're just seeing that you're on social media, once again, that your engagement is low, it's probably because people don't understand who you are or what you do.
Right. Definitely. And what role does emotion play in messaging?
And we talked a little bit about this before, but I think tapping into emotion is something that helps build trust and authenticity. And so right now, emotional content or something that elicits the five senses, I think will perform way better than something that's maybe just more surface level or just explaining services.
Yeah.
When you look at evolving messaging and evolving brands over time, you want to tap into the things that kind of make you feel homey or make you feel reminiscent of another time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think some of the best brands do that. For example, if you look at almost any Super Bowl commercial, Budweiser comes to mind right away, right? Every single Clydesdale commercial is nostalgic, and they do a really good job at tapping into that emotion.
Yeah.
Beers maybe in there for a nanosecond,
right? That kind of reminds me of Publix. Publix, their Thanksgiving commercials.
So
they don't take place in the supermarket.
Yep.
You never go to actual Publix. It's usually at someone's home.
Exactly.
And first of all, those always get me. There I am crying on the couch and I'm ice cold, and there I am defrosting because they're so good. There was one where she was trying to remember her mom's recipe, and then the mom shows up and surprises her for Thanksgiving. It's sweet because it's touching on home, family, the holidays, and then at the very last second, it's Publix where shopping is a pleasure. But there's no visit to the store, no going to the store, no employees. So you're right. It doesn't really have a big moment when you get to hit that nostalgic
Absolutely.
tinge. Yeah.
One brand that did that this year that totally surprised me, and I actually thought originally was a Publix commercial, was Kerrygold, the Irish butter. They had a very similar, nostalgic commercial where it's a son returning home after years, and they all sat down at the table and they're spreading butter on the
I love
the bread,
that.
but it's not even, you don't even see the logo or anything until the end, but it
got you. Yes. And it's like their Chick-fil-A commercials too. There's no Chick-fil-A store, no food in there. They don't have the fries and the chicken sandwiches. It's people on the red couch talking about how Chick-fil-A made them feel.
Exactly. And one important thing to note about all these brands we talked about, though, is they are all established brands.
Yeah.
They are brands that once you see the logo, you already know what they are and what they sell. So one misstep with emotion and emotional branding is if you go too emotional, too hard as a new company, too fast, right? Because that can be confusing as well. You do have to lay that brand awareness, especially if you're launching a new company, expanding a company, offering a new service, because you do need people very quickly to understand the what before you tap into the emotion.
Right.
All these brands we've talked about have done that for years.
Yeah.
So we already are aware.
Can't skip the big steps just to get there.
Yeah, just to try to elicit the emotion.
And I was gonna ask you, what's one messaging mistake you see even experienced marketers making? And I feel like that could be one.
Sure.
Is there another mistake that you see?
Yeah, so I guess on the other spectrum, so going too emotional, another one would be going too professional. So being void of that authenticity or that brand and being, I don't know, too refined, or we kind of talked about before, maybe too specialized in the actual industry and not speaking more
industry talk. Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely one. And I see it a lot in, like you said, like trade and small local businesses and things like that. I feel like lawyers have kind of started figuring out, the injury lawyers, how to play into, okay, we're selling the benefit. We're going to show a commercial with someone who won $350,000, right? Rather than going into
the process and the nitty-gritty. Yes. I have a client
outcome.
Exactly. I have a client who's in tech, and it's funny because I work with their, internal team. And I think the internal team understands, what they do very well. But then they have a bunch of different vendors for different things like video editing, or for me for social. And we're the ones on the outside being like, but what does this do?
Sure.
Or, but why? Or what does this mean? And it's a nice mesh because they're like, just because. And then they realize, oh, I have to break this down because maybe our customer is also asking. And because the internal team might know, the external might not know. So it's also, I feel like, a big thing with tech and
absolutely
any sort of industry in that level.
No, I work with a very complex company that has a number of different arms, and they're actually going through a rebrand to merge everything under one house right now. And a lot of the storytelling that we're going to be doing is through case studies to show how all the different branches work together to create the final product. Because if you just presented the final product, you would never understand how this company
came about
the back end of everything and all that went into it to see this final amazing product. So it's really interesting. We're trying to kind of break it apart and do more of that storytelling of the step-by-step.
No, I really love that. So now let's talk about how listeners can start to improve their own messaging, even without a full rebrand. I think people get really lost in that, and they think like, it's not working, let me just do a full overhaul, where sometimes they can do baby steps. So are there any frameworks or first steps that you recommend for brands trying to clarify their message?
Sure. I mean, the easiest thing to do is ask everyone else. Do an audit.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel comfortable asking your own clients, there's survey companies, there's ways you can kind of secret shop, yourself.
Yeah.
But what I would do is do a lot of social listening, do an audit on social media, on reviews, depending on the industry you're in. I would definitely ask your close, trusted circle around you, hey, if you were to describe me in 3 sentences or the business or service offerings we have, what are those?
Yes.
And if that doesn't align with what you think you're doing, you have a problem.
Yes. Yes.
And so then I think, once again, breaking it down to what is simple and how can we start at the bare minimum. A lot of my job in brand messaging, and I'm sure yours in copywriting, is how do we say the same thing with big impact with less words?
Yes.
People don't have time. People don't want to read it. So if you can start with the least amount of words first and then build and add in from there, that's great. But once you hear kind of the audit, honing in on your audience and doing a deeper dive on that audience. What are their habits? What does their day look like? What is their purchasing power? I mean, doing a full analysis on your audience and consistently doing that over time.
Right. Not just once and I'm done.
Yes. I worked a lot with luxury real estate clients, and we worked mainly in pre-construction development. So before a building's actually built. Your audience before a building is built is very different than the audience once the building is built. How you communicate what this building will be versus what the building is.
Yes.
It changes. So your audience is changing over time. Also, you know, it takes 4 to 8 years to build a building in South Florida.
Right.
And things can happen in the world politically, things can happen economically, and you have to evolve and based off of what's happening in the world. So kind of taking an audit of that. And then at the end of the day, and this is another Simon Sinek thing, but huge marketing thing, what problem are you solving? And making sure that you're speaking to that, not the what, but the why, and then the value add that you're providing with your services.
Yes. And I think we're talking about this for a brand, but this also could be for a personal brand.
Sure.
And I know you and I very much have distinct personal brands. And we were talking about even today, like with your glasses and your look. And I feel like with myself as well, people know like what we do, or they see it on social. And these things also, you can audit yourself or have your friends audit your personal brand, because the personal brand does matter too.
Absolutely. And how you then convey that personal brand cross-channel, right? I think something else that builds, we talked a lot about authenticity, but that builds authenticity is cross-platform. You're similar. I've recently been doing more content creation myself, working with other restaurant groups or wellness groups and things like that. And I think at first when I started putting out that content, I had questions. People were like, oh, is this what you're doing now? Is this?
Yes.
Because it was my face. It was me, not just me.
And I've seen them. Yes.
So it's interesting because I kind of did a little bit of a self-audit in that moment for my personal brand. And I was like, okay, how do I want to show up to the world? Yeah. And I don't want my LinkedIn to feel like one Melissa and my Instagram to feel like another.
Right.
I am me and I am my brand. And especially now with my new business, I want people to know you're getting all of me, right? You're getting the content creation, the photographer, the publicist, the marketer, and then the marathon runner and the person who wants to hang out with my dog and my husband.
Exactly.
Like you're getting all of that.
Yes.
And I want to show up authentically.
Yes. And honestly, a lot of times too, it's those moments that are outside of professional, like the fun things you do that can connect a client. Like I went on a Disney cruise a couple months ago. I had a client be like, well, I'm on the Disney Cruise Vacation Club and this and that. And like we had a whole bonding moment, but it was fun to see it's nice to know people's hobbies and nice to know you could connect to people, but still, it's still part of my brand in the sense of, you know, I'm still Kassie to social media, but I have a life or I do things outside of it. So I see what you're saying. And I want to jump to a topic that's very hot that we talk about a lot on the podcast. And people ask me all the time about AI writing tools, especially like a ChatGPT.
Sure.
If you're doing all this work and doing, you know, your messaging and overhauling it and making sure it's great, you don't want that to go, you know, in the trash by just having ChatGPT write things for you. So how do you combat that? Do you think it's a helpful tool, a hurtful tool? And what do you recommend?
Sure. Absolutely. It's a helpful tool. And it is just that, a tool, right?
Yes.
So ChatGPT or any other AI software is just as smart as the person that's using it.
Yes.
So put crap in, get crap out.
Yeah, I literally have a visual that I always put with the trash, like in a trash bag, ChatGPT, and the trash comes right out.
Yep.
It's so true.
It's so true. And for me, I absolutely use it. And I want my clients to know I use it.
Yes.
Because I want them to know that I am using it to the best of my ability in a way that's going to benefit them.
Yes.
Right? And I want to be transparent. I mean, even yesterday, I sent over a press summary and I wrote in the email to the client, I said, here's a AI summary of the press that I secured. Here's the tone and general sentiments of each of them that AI pulled.
Yes.
And I wanted them to know that I was not wasting their hourly billable rate.
Right.
You know,
with a quick report. Right. They want to know.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm not just copy paste to the end. I'm looking at it. One thing that I love doing, especially now that ChatGPT, actually the free version has it now too, but the paid version has a better version of it, is the project feature.
Yes, love.
So within the project feature, I've been training my ChatGPT to speak more and more like my clients.
Yes.
So if I'm doing any ghostwriting or, back end writing for my clients, I have a bot for each of my clients.
Yes.
That over time I have trained to sound more like them.
Yeah.
And that has been the coolest tool, because while I don't rely fully on it, it absolutely gets me started. It gives me different approaches to how they would answer something. I definitely love using it for brainstorming. I love using it for organization.
Yes.
I mean, I do a lot of my meetings on Google Meet. So Gemini now records all the meetings and gives you all the cliff notes and everything. And then the full transcript as well, which is super helpful. Sometimes I'll analyze the transcript against the notes that they sent.
I do that with Otter AI.
Yes.
People don't realize too that you can drop in, like people have all these brand documents, brand guidelines, and our voice and all of these PDFs and even speeches and meetings. You can drop in audio files, PDFs, any of these files into ChatGPT and get it to learn faster and quicker. And I think that's a tool that people don't realize they can utilize.
Sure.
But if you're just going in, like you said, and not doing the work and not putting the time in, you're going to sound like a robot.
Yep. And people are smart.
Yes.
Everyone knows what ChatGPT sounds like, looks like.
Oh, we know.
The dash and whatever.
Yes.
But, I think it'll continue to be a tool. I don't believe all the it's going to take our jobs and replace and whatnot. I mean, it'll do crappy work, sure.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's going to replace.
No, it's important to embrace it and to learn how to use it versus being afraid of it.
Sure. One thing I will say on the AI front, and I talk more and more about this, is the idea of GEO and optimizing for chats. So everyone knows now when you go to Google, you usually, if you put in a question, you get a summary at the top. That is being pulled from typically press placements and typically multiple sources that are saying the same thing. So that's why PR is becoming more and more important, earned media, not just paid media.
Yeah.
So I could take out an ad all day and say that I'm great at this, that, and the other. But if I have a third-party source or a media outlet saying I'm an expert in that, that's what's being pulled into the Google summaries. So as much as it's great to have those Google summaries, if you didn't do the work on the behind the scenes and put in the investment into public relations or earned media, you probably won't show up as well as you used to.
And it's kind of funny because it's almost like traditional marketing always comes back around and people think it doesn't, or people think like, oh, we've moved on from that.
Sure.
But it just keeps evolving, but it's still there. Those marketing practices are still there. Those principles, they still matter. So we close out every episode with 2 quick questions. So Melissa, you're up. First one is, what's your favorite current social media platform and why?
You probably know this about me already, but my favorite one is LinkedIn.
I knew that was going to come. Yeah. And we've done the LinkedIn Lounge.
We've done the LinkedIn Lounge a few years now. LinkedIn for me is still such the wild, wild west. And I think it's evolving so much from, hey, it's just a place I go and look if I need a job. And it's really a portfolio to be able to show your brand, both professionally and personally. And it optimizes so well for people, right? I don't necessarily think it's really that strong or great for brands, but for the face of the brand, incredible. I think also LinkedIn is playing around with how they're rewarding content. They're trying to shift and push more video content, more of the real style, doom scrolling, if you will. And that's really exciting and interesting. And if you get in on it early and understand how they're optimizing, you quickly become an important followed person on LinkedIn.
Yes, actually from a referral from you, I had a potential client call, and we were talking about their social media. I actually said in the proposal I was going to include to pick one of their execs a thought leadership track for them on LinkedIn, because they were saying how their LinkedIn is not having enough traction, but then they have no execs really doing anything with LinkedIn. So I was like, I can manage your LinkedIn all day long, but let's pick one exec to really have that thought leadership component. Because as you said, LinkedIn is promoting and pushing the people. So it's nice to have that. And I'm a LinkedIn fan as well. And what's one social media trend that you wish would just go away?
Sure.
I know there's like many. Everyone's always like, ooh, tough question.
I think one, I still fall for it all the time,
Okay.
but the hot take that's not actually a hot take.
Oh, yes.
So the like shock and awe of, oh my gosh, let me tell you this. And then it's like, okay, we all think that. Or
Yes.
whatever. And I understand hooks and how important that is to get people still watching your video and whatnot. But when I go to social media, I'm starting to mute people that I don't feel like are adding real value and content to my life. And so if you're just here for a shock and awe, I probably won't follow you anymore.
No, I actually saw a funny video making fun of that.
Okay.
Because someone was doing like, they were in Miami and they were like, let me take you to this quaint little cafe and mom and pop bakery, and it's Pura Vida. And it's like the only one of South Florida.
Yeah.
And then another was like, and this cute little grocery store, Publix. Like they were like rage baiting of people doing that. Or like the place you've never heard of, The Wharf. Like they were just being funny. And it's so true. People try to like get the views or the clicks, but then it just pisses people off. It's rage bait.
Yep.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us and sharing such practical insights.
This has been great. I appreciate it.
And where can our listeners follow your work and connect with you?
Sure. So you can follow me on pretty much every platform, Melissa Larrea. And then my new website is melissalarrea.co.
Perfect. And I will link it in the show notes. And thank you again for being part of The Herd.
Of course. Thank you.